Hi, my name is MJ, and I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Bob Rogers, who will be giving a presentation on the 5 steps to successful digital marketing. Bob started and ran a government contracting business for 30 years, which he sold in 2015. He was number 250 of Inc. magazine's top 500 rankings of the fastest growing privately held companies in the United States. He's won over $100 million in government contracts, and WSI Digital Solutions is his fifth business. He has a BS in engineering from the United States Air Force Academy, an MBA from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and is an OPM graduate of Harvard Business School. He's also the Dean of Business for Stratford University and an adjunct professor at Northern Virginia Community College. You can get more advice and tips on social selling and digital marketing by following Bob Rogers on LinkedIn. And you can visit Bob's website at www.mydigitalwsi for more information on digital marketing. And now I'll turn it over to Bob Rogers.
Great. Thank you, MJ, for that great introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all you out listening to this presentation. I'm going to talk to you about something that's very, very important to the survival of every business in the country, and that's digital marketing. What has happened because of the COVID-19 pandemic is that the way we communicate, the way we become visible in our marketplace has dramatically changed. In person is no longer the primary way in which we communicate with each other. Digitally or electronically is become the norm. So if you are a business and you want to become visible and you want to be known, you're going to have to understand the concepts that I'm going to talk to you about in this presentation. So let's start, first of all, with the definition. The definition of a visible company. That's a company that has attained a high visibility and a reputation for expertise and quality service in their industry niche. A lot of concepts here to keep in mind. High visibility requires a reputation, requires expertise, requires also a reputation and quality service, and then the all-important industry niche. And we're going to cover all these concepts as we go forward. So why is visibility so important? Well, quite frankly, in today's world, and any world, to be more clear, it gives you more opportunities. It's easier to close sales in your business. Your business will grow faster. Your profits will be higher, and your company will have a greater valuation. And I can assure you, as an individual who ran a government contracting business for 30 years. I staffed military hospitals all over the globe for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. The key parameters that the buyers of my company wanted to understand was how fast can the company grow after they purchased it and what kind of profit margins they are going to have. And that pretty much determined what the valuation was for selling my company. So let's get right down to it. What are the 5 keys? Well, the 5 keys are target market, and a good subset of that is a buyer's persona, which we'll talk about in a minute. Your website, your social media, your content, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how all this fits together in the digital marketing in action. So target market is finding your niche and the buyer persona. So finding your niche. This little figurine on the left-hand side, this little white figure, shows that it has 3 different paths, and it shows the red path off to the right. What it means is that in order to be successful, your company has to have a niche. It has to be narrow in scope. And the way you figure that out is that you do market research. Secondary market research is primarily done over the internet, or actually all research in today's world is done over the internet, but it's exclusively a search for information. Primary research, however, is a little bit more interactive, or in which you might send out a blog for comments, or you might send out surveys, or you might even do personal interviews, or any kinds of other audio or video research opportunities which give you a chance to get responses. So in the secondary, it's only one way you're looking out, but in the primary, you're getting responses back. You want to differentiate your products or services. That means you want to be different than everybody else. And one of the ways you got to make sure you're different is to avoid crowded markets. If you find yourself in a market with a lot of players doing exactly the same thing you are, that's probably not going to be a very successful long-term endeavor for you. Now, I want to introduce you to a concept, if you have not already heard it, called buyer persona. A buyer persona is a fictional representation of your ideal customer. What does that mean exactly? Well, I'm going to give you an example. Let's assume that we're talking about a children's clothing store. And in a children's clothing store, what would your ideal customer look like? Well, it helps to have a picture of what that customer looks like. And so I picked this picture that you see before you of a young woman and her young son. And I used this picture in teaching to Puerto Rican entrepreneurs actually in Puerto Rico in a series of digital marketing lectures that I give there. And I tell them the same thing I tell anyone in the world, is that what you have to do is to ask yourself a series of questions of this person. Where does she work? Where does she spend her time? Where does she buy her clothes? Does she have more than one child? So these have implications. If she has more than one child, that means she's shopping for two different children. If they're both boys, maybe some of the clothes of one boy may be worn by the second one, maybe not. If she is working, she may have more disposable income than a woman who does not. But then again, she may come from a high income neighborhood. It depends on the niche that you're looking at. The point is that you have a pretty good idea of what your buyer is all about. And most importantly, you have a very good idea of where your buyer hangs out on the internet so that you're there and you're visible. And that's what buyer personas are all about. So the first thing you need is a website. And while a lot of people in business don't have websites, the website is in fact the main tool with which most people use to get visible on the internet. A high-performing website, we do high-performing websites in my practice as a digital marketer, and they have 4 components. Number 1, clear messaging and professional imagery, a responsive design. They have good educational content, and they're optimized for search engine. They're optimized for search engines, or SEO, search engine optimization. So the high performance category first starts off with imaging, and you can see on the left-hand side here an image which hopefully your eyes are drawn to away from the text on the right-hand side. And if they are, then I have succeeded in demonstrating to you the power of imaging. The ability to capture someone's attention, even momentarily, may mean the difference between someone continuing to look at your content or someone just flipping through and deciding that they're not interested. Imaging is as much a part of your website or any of your content as is the words. 80% of the buyers that buy from companies in today's world visit their website first. And they're looking for answers for your brand position. And your brand position is what is it you do? Who do you target? And why should I buy from you? And the professional imagery should reinforce that. It should tell pictorially what it is you do. This picture, if you were a pet store owner, this would be a great picture to indicate the kinds of services that you do. I'm not sure if you were doing, if you're a children's clothing store or you're doing charter sales out in the Caribbean or whatever it is you're doing, that this picture really isn't relevant. But you want to have relevant pictures. And what you want to try to use is original photography if you can get good high resolution photography of your business and what or your customers using your products. Stock photos like this one can augment some of the imagery that is on your website, particularly local photos. But the images again should describe your brand and what you're trying to accomplish. The next is high performing websites have responsive design. So in today's world, almost all of our content is gathered through some type of mobile device. The world has shifted away from the desktop computer to a laptop, to a tablet, to a mobile phone, or to whatever the new technology is right now. Apple has the watch, but quite frankly, wearables like the watch are only the beginning. Google is in massive high gear research to come out with a whole slew of wearable technology, and you're starting to see a proliferation of this technology in all kinds of things from medicine to take your blood pressure or your sugar count for insulin, or any number of different things are starting to come out. So whenever you have this information to be displayed on a screen, the experience of the user should be just as good on a smaller device as it is on a larger device. And that means that the aspect ratio, that is the length and the width, should collapse and form an easy to read a piece of content. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have problems. So it's very likely that somebody could be at work and view your content on their desktop, look at their iPad on a commute back in normal times, or look at your content on a phone. And if it's not the same, it's going to cause problems. A high-performing website also has educational content. Now notice we're not selling here. We're using our what we call inbound marketing tactics. We're creating guides, blogs, resource sections of your websites. Give people an understanding of what it is you do, and more importantly, educating them on the kinds of things that will help them solve their problems. If you go on my website, you'll see a whole section of resources in which I have videos, I have blogs, I have all kinds of information all around digital marketing to help my customers understand the concepts of digital marketing. You want to make sure you have useful and relevant expertise, and you don't want to sell. You don't want any flashy brochures and sales pitches and 10% off now and buy now, and those are turnoffs. People are bombarded with that stuff on radio and television. On your website, you want to be educational, because what you want to be known as is a subject matter expert. And when people get ready to buy, they want to know that they can trust you as a trusted advisor to solve their problems. And then lastly, we have high-performing websites have search engine optimization. And I love this slide because this slide has SEO in black letters in the bottom. And the SEO, if digital marketing were Hogwarts, which is the Harry Potter series, then SEO would be Professor Snipes' dark arts class. This would be sort of the magic behind all that goes on. But quite frankly, it's very easy to explain. It's 4 different things. First of all, it's relevant keywords. Second, it's web link authority. Third, it's your experience, responsiveness. And then finally, it's technology. And the keywords is really the big deal. Ranking for keywords on a Google search is really important. So let's go back to the example of the children's clothing store. If words like children's clothing or shoes for children, or spring dresses for children, or toddlers, or any of those kinds of words that connote the children's aspects of clothing, are, when you go on to search in your website does not pop up when people type it in, then you're not visible. People don't know that you exist. The whole idea behind search engine optimization is to get the keywords that you want, that are relevant to your company, up on the first page of Google. Google is responsible for 80% of all searches. That's a dominant position over all the other search engine products that are out there. Website links, this means that somehow or another your website is linked to a stronger website. So if you're in clothing retail and children's clothing retail, and you are not a part of the National Children's Clothing Retailers Association, where in which you're linked, and if somebody were to go on that website and they could find your company, that's going to be a problem. Or you're not linked with the local chamber of commerce, or you're not linked with some of the influencers who are in your community. Those are the things that make you visible. And of course, responsiveness. If someone clicks on your content, you don't want it to take forever to switch from one page to another. You don't want one page to show up half with half the page, or some of the images clipped off. Again, this goes back to the responsiveness that we talked about in the previous section. And then lastly, technology is optimized. We all know that different releases are made all the time in our mobile devices. And if the software you're using in your website is not able to keep up with the new releases, you're going to have problems. So there are lots of businesses that are operating out today that have websites that are 10, 12 years ago. I have several clients who started out that way, and the first thing we had to do is get their website so that it actually was responsive to the latest releases on the various mobile devices and desktops. All right, now here's the subject, social media, that most of you are already familiar with. Most of us already have some type of social media presence, but I'm going to talk to you about social media from a business point of view. I want to first turn your attention to the chart on the right-hand side. I want to talk to you about B2B content, business to business marketing, because a lot of us out here are going to try to market to other businesses or to the government. And if in fact that's the case, then your major tool for getting to that audience is not Facebook, it's LinkedIn. And your second platform for doing that is Twitter. Don't get me wrong, Facebook is by far the largest social media platform across all countries on this planet. However, when it comes to the niche of business to business, I want you guys to know that it's LinkedIn that most people look at. If you have a business to consumer, where in which you're selling to the consumer, Facebook is where you should be. So that's important for you to know and important for you to understand. So what are the different uses for social media? Well, the first one is networking. The advantages are enormous. Scheduling conflicts can be really diminished. There are no geographical boundaries. As I say, I'm teaching in Puerto Rico, and I could frankly teach anywhere in the country, on the planet, and in the country. There's no travel required. I can sit at my desk like I am right now and talk to you all. You can promote your content with social media. That means that you can use social media to increase your search engine optimization. You can use keywords. Remember those keywords I was telling you about? All these keywords can populate your content, and then it can raise your visibility on the internet. And then here's one that a lot of people it's really starting to explode, and that is recruiting. Uh, a lot of employers have pivoted away from the traditional job boards, which I used to recruit for decades, healthcare workers. Many people now look on social media as the primary platform for finding talent. It's easier, it's simpler. Um, there are ways in which LinkedIn, for example, can actually just have you, if someone wants to apply for a job, they can just they can just click a button and upload their profile, and you can get a quick snapshot of who they are and what they're all about without them having to fill out a whole bunch of forms. That gives you a big, huge competitive advantage over another employer who would have to labor through a whole bunch of pages and fill out a whole bunch of information before they can make the cut. All right, so let's talk about each one of these. LinkedIn, primary use for B2B or B2G, business to government. You can research your target market by doing this. In other words, let's say you want to target a company that you want to do business with. Well, if you put that company's name in the search box, everybody who is on LinkedIn actually pops up, and you can find out all the names of all the people in that company, including the key people that you want to talk to. Networking, this is the most powerful networking B2B tool out there. Facebook, of course, is the biggest networking tool ever. Recruiting, we've already talked about. Now, when you set up your LinkedIn page, make sure you take some time to do it right. Don't take a selfie of yourself on the beach in beach clothes, all right? That, unless you're selling beach apparel in your business. If you're in some type of professional capacity, say you're in cybersecurity or whatnot, you want a professional photo. You want to have a descriptive title, and you want to make sure that your social media and LinkedIn account is linked to your website. On your Facebook page, you need to create a similarly impressive profile with a picture that is indicative of the work that you're doing. You want to state clearly what your business objective is, and you want to make sure you have relevant content on it. Now, here's a device that is really come on like gangbusters, Twitter. Everyone uses Twitter. It doesn't matter if it's B2B, B2C, B2G. Everyone uses Twitter. It's got 128 characters. Many influencers use Twitter. Some people exclusively use Twitter to communicate everything, and they do extremely well. And the last social media one that I want to point out to you is YouTube. This is a great tool. It's used by everyone. The content is primarily for training. You can use it for training purposes. And there are just a whole ton of YouTube entrepreneurs out there that actually are able to scale to a point where they can actually advertise. So if you have some niche, some goods, educational product or service that you want to do it, you don't have to sell it in a brick and mortar store. You can sell it strictly over YouTube. All right, now I want to show you how all this works in action. Digital marketing in action. There are three real components. Number one, you need to understand the marketing funnel. You attract, you build and engage, and you turn opportunities into clients. So at the top of the funnel, in this example, you have 1,000 leads, turns into 100 prospects, turns into 10 customers. And in my business, that's pretty much what you need in order to make it happen. So to attract people to what I do, I have to write blogs and articles and videos, and I have to constantly keep relevant and keep my name out there. And once people end up on my website reading my social content, I need to engage with them. And I'll say to them, hey, if you like what you see, why don't you download one of my guides or look at some of the content that I have. And then if we do set an appointment, I will then give them a presentation, show them a demo, and that's when the conversation starts and I start converting them. The next area is in that you're going to need is a CRM, customer relationship management system. Now, this stores all your contacts, your prospects, and your influencers. The key thing here is that you can start off with just a simple spreadsheet, but you want to make sure that you segment things. So let's go back to the children's clothing store again. So if you have contacts that you're sending content out to, either through email or social media or whatnot, what you want to do is you want to segment all the mothers that you're targeting to, but then you have the grandparents. So you can't send the same content to the grandparents as you send to the mothers, and so it needs to be tailored. But grandparents are a huge purchaser of clothing for kids. And then lastly, we want to measure the effectiveness. Your website SEO, your Google Analytics, these are all things that can give you feedback on what you're doing. They have tremendous software on websites that will allow you to determine how many visits you have, how many organic search you have, how many keywords, where your keywords rank. And we work with our customers all the time to make sure that their keywords are continuing to improve. And we do this mostly through the second area here, social media development. We develop a long-term calendar. In other words, we already know 2 to 3 months in advance what we're going to write about. We track and monitor the followers, the comments, the shares, the likes, and that way we have an understanding of what's working and what's not working. Okay, this concludes my presentation today. I hope you've enjoyed the 5 keys to digital marketing. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me at bob@mydigitalwsi.com. Hope you have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care.